Marvel Snap's newest card, Hulkling, has just released, and to the surprise of nobody, I have had success with the card by putting it in a deck that's already good. But I'm not here to just talk about that today. I'd like to talk about what a card like Hulkling has that is unique to it, and how that makes it stack up compared to other cards at its slot, and introduce the concept of wins above replacement to how we evaluate Marvel Snap cards. So let's get into it. Emperor Hulkling is a 6/11. At the start of the game, he copies the text of a random 6-cost card, meaning he could be anything from an 11 power Arnim Zola to an 11 power Leader to, on the down end, an 11 power Destroyer, an 11 power Giganto, cards that range from incredibly strong to not very strong at all. Hulkling releases into a metagame that actually does want 6-drops. There are multiple decks, whether they be Sandman decks, Wiccan Loki decks, or Arishem decks, that are going to be able to put this card in and succeed, not necessarily despite it, but without it being a major driving force behind why the card or the deck is succeeding at the level that it is. So this is where we start talking about wins above replacement. When we talk about a concept like that with regards to card games, it's far less quantified than it is in sports, but the basic thing that you should be thinking about is this card better than the alternatives, and if so, how much? How many more wins will I get from running Hulkling than running Magneto? How many more wins will I get from running Hulkling than running Doctor Doom or Ultron? And this sort of marginal analysis can enable you to understand when this card is good and when this card isn't. But there is also a second level to Hulkling, because Hulkling, unlike those cards, is relatively impossible to play around when he's good. The good kind of Hulklings are completely unplay-aroundable. Your opponent cannot have any understanding of what it is you're snapping on, and so he has this secondary cube equity. The question for whether or not this card is good is how he balances having that cube equity against the relatively lower value compared to the replacement cards that you'd be running instead of him, like Magneto, like Ultron, like Doctor Doom, cards that are going to always be good. This is the list that I played. It should come as no surprise to you that I put the card that came out recently into the deck that is pretty good. What was a surprise to me was just how high the cube rate was relative to the win rate, and I think that could just be an issue of sample size, but it also illustrates sort of what Hulkling is as a card, which is to say there are almost always going to be maybe 3 or 4 better options than Hulkling in terms of pure win rate. Cards like Magneto, cards like Ultron, cards like Doctor Doom, cards like Red Hulk, those are probably going to, on a game-to-game basis, be better. However, Hulkling will enable you to have a powerful game plan that is impossible to play around. And he's not that much worse than any of those cards, so you end up gaining some cube equity and losing potentially some win rate equity. To be clear, what I am saying here is right now, I do not see a convincing reason for you to spend resources on Hulkling. But it's not that the card is bad, it's that there are a lot of cards that can replace it at a reasonable rate that do not cost you 6,000 collector's tokens or force you to open spotlight caches. I have been naming them this entire video, but I'll do it again just to help you out. You can run this exact deck with Magneto, or Ultron, or Doctor Doom, or Red Hulk, and you will probably be fine. You do not need Hulkling to play this deck. You will probably not need Hulkling ever to play any deck, because what this card is doing is providing an alternate option for the generic 6-drop slot in whatever deck you are playing. It is unfocused. It is not something that is an archetype unto itself. It is competing for generic stats, and since it is not as good at generic stats as those cards, but it is also impossible to play around, it is going to be best used as a swap into decks like this when your opponents are unable to really get a read on what you're trying to do. One of the things I've been harping on a lot with Sandman decks and Wiccan decks is how much value you can get from just flipping through your 6-drops and swapping them in and out game to game, just so your opponents never know exactly what you're doing. That can be useful. Hulkling is that dynamic in a card. However, he is not that much better than other 6-drops, or even meaningfully better than other 6-drops that you could simply be running. By the way, as an aside, I actually think this deck is monstrously strong. When we talk about a deck that is built for the metagame right now, if you're not going to play Loki, at least do yourself the favor of playing this. This is the kind of deck that can survive a Loki nerf and end up being like a future all-star, and it's already quite strong right now. You don't need Hulkling to play it, you don't need speed to play it. Replace speed with pick a 3-drop, replace Hulkling with pick a 6-drop, you're good to go. So if you have a lot of just like generally decent cards and you want a good sort of deck that you can just play a bunch of strong stuff in and that will likely survive a potential nerf incoming, I would recommend this deck. I do think this deck, like, I don't want this deck to get lost in the Hulkling of it all, because I kind of would do a video on this deck even if Hulkling wasn't in it. It's just my good fortune that this deck just happens to have 2 slots for 6-drops, and it sort of really doesn't matter what you run in them as long as it's like good enough, and Hulkling is exactly good enough, but not good enough that you should buy it, because there are better options. So with that in mind, I do actually want to do a card-by-card breakdown here, because I think this archetype has the potential to be the wave of the future, Hulkling or no Hulkling. The Hood is part of why this archetype makes a ton of sense. This is an archetype that has the Clog sub-package of Hood, Viper, Kate Bishop, and White Widow, while also maintaining a lot of outs to that Clog package that our opponents may play, like Lady Deathstrike. So you end up in a situation where you have a powerful early game wedded to a powerful late game, and most importantly, you are not a Loki deck, and because you are a Hood Viper version of this, you actually are able to wield the Clog stuff against Loki decks. One of the things Loki Wiccan is not good at fitting in is Clog stuff and then anti-Clog stuff. So you can clog them up and have something other than a completely terrible matchup against the Pseudo Mirror. Now, the Pseudo Mirror is still pretty awful, not in terms of the matchup, just in terms of like, one of you misses a 1-drop and then the other one snaps because they have Wiccan and then you lose, and that's just how it goes. But all mirrors are kind of like that. Kitty Pryde is a key piece of how this deck manages to stop itself from getting clogged, and in order to trigger Athena as well, it's a great card for using up energy to make sure your Wiccan and Speed are appropriately active. One of the best cards to run alongside Wiccan and Speed in the entire game, especially if you are a Athena deck. Kitty Pryde is a no-brainer here. Maria Hill is the other best friend of Wiccan and Speed, a 1-drop that gives you a 2-drop. You are very, very able to use this card. However, there are some sort of plays that I think are worth pointing out. A lot of the time, it's better if you have Kitty and Maria Hill to play Kitty Pryde out instead of playing Maria Hill out, because this enables you to play Kitty on 1, Maria Kitty on 2, and then the card that Maria gives you and Kitty Pryde on 3. Sometimes if you have a bunch of stuff early that puts cards in your hand, you end up not wanting to do that. But it is worth talking about how you have to order things in the early game in order to guarantee, even if you draw badly, that you have an active Wiccan. Typically, it involves the guarantee play of Maria on turn 2 as opposed to turn 1 when you have a Kitty Pryde. You can diverge from this once you understand how the next few turns are going to go. But if you're not planning out your next few turns in your head already, you're going to want to just stick to the script, I think. The best scaling early card in the game is Athena. She is very often a 2/6 or a 2/9. I will note that I do think she is replaceable. I know Butt, aka Gyat, aka BU+++, aka GYA++, is currently ranked 2 with a version of this list that cut Athena for Jeff. It is another move against the sort of clog stuff that you can have. There are some real upsides to Jeff right now, hedging against other clog stuff versus just being very tall in the case of Athena. I prefer Athena, but she is far from, I guess, locked in here. You are going to be able to play with a Jeff in that slot if you feel it necessary. White Widow, I think, is actually much harder to replace because of how important she is to your clog sub-theme. The most important clog play you can do is sending over 2 things on like turn 4 so that if they played 2 things in a lane, that lane is then clogged forever. That's the best clog play you have access to, and it does rely pretty heavily on White Widow existing, because otherwise you are never able to do that unless you draw Viper and you get the Acid Arrow. Having that extra option to make this happen, and it being a very good card that you're very happy to play regardless, is a big boost to this deck. Hard to come up with a budget replacement for White Widow here. I do think she's important to how this deck functions. If you have not purchased Kate Bishop on the Battle Pass, I cannot be more strenuous in urging you to do this. I think that Kate Bishop is a staple, straight up. I think you will see this card in a million decks forever. I find it hard to believe that in any reasonably balanced meta, this is not one of, if not the best 2-drops in the entire game. It is an unbelievably powerful card with all sorts of weird synergies, lets you get all sorts of different utility and power, grappling arrow stuff into Death's Domain or Altar of Death or Luke's Bar or whatever is great. Sending over Acid Arrow is great. The other 2 arrows are basically just pure power. You are very happy with that. Yes, sometimes she's just like gives you a Hawkeye and an Ant-Man, and no, she's not worth playing if she always did that, but she doesn't always do that, and she's very, very strong. And actually, the more that I think about it, she might actually be worth playing if she always did that. I don't actually know. That might just be like fine, right? But yeah, this card is great. You are interested in filling up your curve early in the game. She's one of the best cards in the game at doing that. She gives you multiple 1-drops. You can make sure that your speed is on, your Wiccan is on all the time, and they are very good cards. A question I'm going to get, or I expect to get a lot in the comments, is replacement for speed. Copycat and Nocturne are the ones that come to mind immediately. Gladiator, perhaps, but the real thing that speed is doing here is just being generic, good, best in slot card, and I think any of those 3 cards can very easily replace him at what this deck is trying to do. They just won't be of the same level of power. Copycat, for example, could be of the same level of power, but part of that's for the information. Part of that is sometimes it's going to be way better, sometimes it's going to be way worse. Gladiator is almost always going to be worse, but does fill the same role of big guy in lane. And of course, Nocturne is your hedge against something like Clog. A further Clog hedge is actually pretty welcome in this deck, as we can tell from butt-cutting Thena in order to fit in Jeff. We like having those Clog hedges. We like having those movers. It is important. And of course, the last card you can replace with would probably just be Loki or Cassandra Nova, and I think those ones are like fairly self-explanatory from there. Viper's a card that I understand when they buffed her why they didn't take a point of power away from her, because if you give this text to Viper, you end up making her more attractive, and you don't want to make her less attractive at the same time as you make her more attractive. But honestly, at this point, I feel like there's no reason this card is a 3/5. This card being a 3/5 is just like 1 point free. You'd probably be playing it if it was a 3/4, so you're just getting extra points out of it right now. Viper is part of your Clog package, part of the anti-opposing Clog package, an extremely powerful card in her own right, almost never a downside, and it's honestly just crazy how much of a buff it was to her to make her no longer be random, because at this point, she is just an absolute metagame all-star, a 3/5 that helps clog your opponent, helps unclog you. Just awesome. There's nothing really bad you could ever say about this card. Wiccan, I think, is one of the cards in here that is not necessarily replaceable because he is the unfair thing you are trying to do. This card is actually just amazing. Like, I get that there are, games where he's not on and all of that, and it's like, sure, sometimes he's not on and that sucks. But the fact that this card is able to be on a decent amount of the time, and that you are paying effectively no cost for that. That's the thing I want to stress here. We talked about like wins above replacement. We talked about what it is to be a better card than the alternatives. Our alternative to Wiccan is like Gwenpool, who is smaller body, potentially bigger effect, but also is worse when Wiccan is on, and Wiccan is on enough of the time that you notice that. And so you end up in a situation where you have this card that you are not paying a meaningful deck building cost for. you are playing the deck building, you're paying the deck building cost of like running Maria Hill, but the rest of this is all just cards you'd be running anyway. You would already, in a deck like this, be playing the Hood and Viper. You would already be playing Kate Bishop and White Widow. You would already be playing 3-drops and Kitty Pryde and Thena. You're basically getting to free roll this card in like what is effectively the best points package that already exists. And it's a 4/7. Pretty crazy, honestly. Lady Deathstrike means something to me. And I know this sounds like a joke. Like, it sounds like I'm doing a setup for a joke here. But today, when this video releases, is August 28th, 2024. I have released a daily video every single day since August 28th, 2023. I went full-time as a Marvel Snap content creator on August 17th, 2023. This Lady Deathstrike variant was the card in the caches when I did that. So when I say this card like means something to me, I actually do mean it. This is like my anniversary card. I'm very happy that I was able to make this deck like on the anniversary of me not actually of me like going a year uploading a video every day. I'm very happy with that. And in terms of what this card does in the current metagame, I genuinely cannot overstate that despite everything I just said about my bias towards this card, she is absolutely incredible. There are so many people who are doing what you're doing in this deck, who are sending over the Hood and things like that and expecting it to matter, who are putting cards on the board that you can blow up with this. I've blown up Thenas with this if they're late enough. This is a card that is very, very powerful. I think you could try to replace it. You could try, I don't know, you could go for like an Annihilus Sentry package in here maybe. I think you could do a lot of stuff. But ultimately, this is the one that fits best as a 1-card slot, counteracts people sending stuff over to you, blows people out, a surprising piece of tech, a very good card right now, just a lot of upside in Lady Deathstrike. Alioth is the 6-drop I don't think you can cut from any of these Wiccan decks. The other spot is very up for debate, but I don't think the Alioth spot is. You are a deck that needs this card in order to be able to interact with things that you would otherwise be unable to interact with. You don't really have tech outside of Lady Deathstrike and Alioth and sometimes clogging their Wong lanes or clogging their negative lanes or whatever. That's all you really have access to. And Alioth is the most important of those cards. I think you can play like Red Hulk Ultron or whatever. I just think you will be losing a meaningful edge if you don't run Alioth. So we've already talked about Hulkling and sort of wins above replacement. I think that Hulkling is probably like 5th or so on the list of good 6-drops. I think it's very easy to play this deck with any of the other cards we talked about in this spot. Dr. Doom is fine. I think my number 1 replacement would be Magneto. I think if you just wanted to like put Magneto in over Hulkling, it would probably just be a better deck. Oh, like Magneto fills the same niche of like scamming people while being big. I think it's more likely that Magneto is good than that Hulkling is good. So I don't want anyone to look at this and be like, KM, you're just telling me to buy Hulkling to run it in a deck where something else is better. I'm not telling you to buy Hulkling. Don't buy Hulkling. Magneto's better. Go play Magneto instead. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for making it through the video, and I hope you enjoy the gameplay we're about to cut to. I'm going to do one little sappy thing here. It has now been a year of me uploading Marvel Snap videos. I am incredibly grateful that I have people that will watch me do everything from explain a deck to yell at Twitter, and I am so grateful to everyone who watches. Just thank you. I really appreciate it. I am lucky enough to, after I got laid off, be able to pivot into being a full-time Marvel Snap content creator. I'm not, rolling in the dough, but I'm making enough money to pay my rent and pay my bills and keep the lights on, and I am very grateful for that. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has been with me as my YouTube channel grows and my Twitch channel grows and all of that stuff, because I had no idea what it would be like a year ago. And if you had told me I would still be doing this and still be able to keep doing it, I probably wouldn't have believed you. So thank you to everyone who makes that possible. I have been KM Best. You just got the KM Boost. And I will see you in the next one. Let's get into the gameplay. Functional. I don't think it's a purchase or anything like that, but it's like, you know, less of a freak out, this is awful than you'd think, I would guess. So they buff him into a 5-cost card? I don't think they'll do that. Why did you go over there? What is happening to my mouse right now? Yeah, negative gamer. Maybe I shouldn't have snapped. Oh my god. Oh my god. All right, I was wrong about the floor. What did he hit again? I forgore. Giganto. I do believe they couldn't possibly here. What are your thoughts on the eggs thing? I wish her all the best. I just really hate when people use content creators choosing to play different games as like a dunk on the game. Wow. Wow. I mean, that probably wins if they don't get farted. That. Fair enough. I guess depending on what Hulkling was, we don't know. Yeah, I didn't realize there's 6 cards in hand there. That is... What are you? Probably not going to be able to get anything off of that. Oh, Hulkling was... Is this a snap? Am I snapping this? Probably. Oh boy, that's a problem. Because they do it over here, right? Lady D makes him smaller. I don't know by how much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So like 6 cards die. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll try this. Let's see what happens. Small enough. Good play. Thanks. Oh. Oh, wow. That's a lot of energy. Do I snap back? Let's make sure we get it right. Why not Goliath and Demon? I'm holding Goliath so I can hopefully play it. I plan on having priority this turn. Holy shit! My god. We still won. But, you know. Hello! Oh my god. We did a thing, chat. Is this the best Hulkling possible? It straight up might be. I gotta kill off that Thena. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but I do have to kill it off. That's gotta die. Thank you for that hype train, y'all. I appreciate the hell out of it. Surely I don't still lose here. To, like, Killmonger some shit, you know? Killmonger Shang-Chi Jeff or whatever the fuck. Nice. Nice! Extremely balanced card, 11 power Arnim Zola. Emperor Skipling? Holy. Daryl always plays off stream. I don't know why people listen to him. Daryl plays more than me in 2 days. Literally, he plays more games than me in the span of 2 days. That's not a shots fired, it's just true. He plays more games than me in the span of 2 days. I know this is a bad play, but I want to do it. I know it's bad. Well, okay. It's cool. Master Mold is going to save me. We've got this. Master Mold is going to save me. Surely never does. Let's go. Issues, of course, are things like, what if we still fucking die, right? Like, yeah, like Venom Carnage or whatever the fuck, yeah? You can just clog mid. I can't full clog mid. I can go like this, which gets us to a loss. Oh, God. Yeah, we're dead, right? Oh. Tiebreaker win? Surely not. Oh, we clogged. What? We have once again failed to draw one drop. It's happening a lot right now. Apparently they spent most of the time. I don't think they said that. I don't think they ever said most of the time. I do not think they ever said most of the time. I think they tested it, but again, you said most of the time. I don't think they said that. They did? Really? Where did they say that? Can I get a quote? A large chunk. That's not the same. That's not most of the time. Go middle. Thank you. Fuck. Jesus. Okay, so we win that. We have a guaranteed one lane. What if they have Annie? Well, then I fucking die, dude. Oh my god. RIP to my Fina. If it's Infinite, we probably win a tiebreaker or lose. I don't know. That's just fake, though. Come on now. Mockingbird at 10. Zemo at 5. We're good. There was no way it was fucking the Infinite. That cannot be real. Just cannot be real out of it. No shot. No chance. That's crazy to me. Oh, cool. It's worse Magento. Squirrel Girl. What are they doing? Are they a Killmonger deck? Am I just fucked? Average view duration. No, it's above average view duration. Oh, they're doing that? I kind of want to not do this guy now. I kind of want to go, like, just play big guys over here. I kind of want to go like this. Surely they don't stay. Oh my god, what the fuck are they doing? Nice. Losing every location. Thanos. Dude, am I gonna die here? Do I get, like, blarveled or some shit? Yeah, I mean, I could LDS mid, but then I don't win right. Is it ever this? I can't LDS, right? Okay, thank God. If they got rewarded for that, I was going to cry. Oh boy. Fuck. Well, we're dead. Okay. We had fun. Did we do the PAX giveaway yet? We did not. Morbius. Bro, I'm being viciously morbed. Is this better? And then next turn I have Lady Deathstrike and that. LDS now, but I get a Raft card. Oh my God. What have they boomered into? Good God. They only have, like, two cards in hand. There's nothing that wins. They think they have this, but they fucking do not. Oh my God. Lady D's.